Thank you. And on behalf of the Commonwealth Observer Group, let me sincerely thank you for the interest and for coming to listen to our preliminary statement this very afternoon. We appreciate this. Interim statement, Commonwealth Observer Group to Pakistan's 2024 general elections. Introduction. I would like to express my appreciation to you all for attending this press conference, in which I will deliver the preliminary findings of the Commonwealth Observer Group, the COG. May I begin by conveying, on behalf of the group, appreciation to the invitation extended to observe this general election, and for all the arrangements that have been made to facilitate the work of the COG by the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, ACP, and the government of Pakistan. Pakistan, as you know, is the founding and valued member of the Commonwealth family and one of the world's largest democracies. We are aware of the importance of these elections, particularly for the people of Pakistan and in general, the Commonwealth family. The group undertook its work on the basis of the principles of impartiality, non-interference, and independence as required by the Declaration of Principles for International Election Observation, and in accordance with the revised guidelines on Commonwealth election observation, which was adopted by all Commonwealth member countries in 2018. The mandate of the Commonwealth Observer Group is to consider the various factors contributing to or affecting the credibility of the electoral process as a whole, and examine in our own judgment whether the elections have been conducted according to the standards for democratic elections to which the member state has committed itself. This includes an analysis of the pre-election environment, as well as polling day procedure. We are issuing a preliminary statement today, while aware that the electoral process is yet to be formally concluded. Our final report, setting out our full findings on the entire electoral process and our detailed recommendations, will be submitted to the Commonwealth Secretary General before being shared with the government of Pakistan and then made available to the public. A group consisting of eminent individuals from across the Commonwealth was constituted by the Secretary General, the Right Honorable Patricia Scotland Casey. On our arrival in Pakistan, the group received briefings from a variety of local stakeholders from the 2nd to 5th February 2024. We met with the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, CP, the police, political parties, civil society, media representatives, Commonwealth High Commissioners, and citizens observers. I also met the caretaker Prime Minister, Minister of Interior, and Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, and I also had a session with the Inspector General of Police of Islamabad. Observers were deployed to various areas on 6 February 2024, covering Islamabad, Rawalpindi, Lahore, Multan, Faisalabad, Karachi, Hyderabad, and Abbottabad. While on deployment, we observed ECP's preparation. In advance of election day, we visited a number of polling stations in different constituencies and met with provincial electoral officials, representatives of the political parties and civil society, the police, and other stakeholders in their respective locations to gain a broader picture of the electoral process on the ground. Our preliminary findings will be shared in the following manner. First, we will provide provide our key findings on the pre-election environment. Second, we will focus on our observation on the election day problem. And finally, we'll share brief reflections on the post-election environment. This approach is in line with our mandate as underscored in the arrival statement we issued on 4th February 2024. I will now turn to the initial observations of the Commonwealth observer groups, and let me start with the pre-election environment. Election preparation. We wish to commend the ECP and its staff for the substantial amount of work and the detailed logistical preparation they made for the elections. While noting some delays involved in proceeding with this general election, we also acknowledge the significant challenges in organizing an election involving around 128 million registered voters, a marked increase from the approximately 106 million registered voters in 2018. So from 2018 to 2024, about 22 million voters have been added. That is very, very significant to manage. We recognize the security challenges faced by the ECP. We know that in the lead up to election day, there were attacks which resulted in the unfortunate loss of lives. Recalling the statement I issued on 7th February, I wish to reiterate my condemnation of these attacks. I offer my sincere condolences to the people of Pakistan, especially the families of the victims, and wish a quick recovery to those injured. I commend all polling and security officials for ensuring the safety and security of polling stations and enabling the people of Pakistan to exercise their right to vote. We note the additional challenges posed by adverse weather conditions. We commend voters, polling officials, and others who braved the cold and even snowbound conditions in some areas on election day. We are cognizant of the effects of the devastating floods in 2022, when many voters lost their computerized national identity card, the CNICs. We are aware of the reports that some voters could not secure new CNICs in time to cast their ballots on election day. We also note that some polling stations were relocated a considerable distance away from their original locations, to which some voters may not have been able to travel. We encourage the National Database and Registration Authorities, NADROA, the ECP, and development agencies to continue to address such challenges. Legal environment and election administration. It is noted that the 2024 general elections took place against the background of a substantially reformed and improved legal framework initiated prior to the previous general elections in 2018. It is hoped that this reform process will continue to be met in accordance with the Constitution of Pakistan, both in letter and spirit, and the values enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter. Where the group identifies areas that the legal framework will benefit from refining, we make recommendations in our final report, in keeping with the Commonwealth's goal of election cycle approach, participation and inclusion. It is commendable that the national gender gap in registered voters was reduced from almost 13% in 2013 to 7.7%. We note also that 60 seats in the National Assembly are reserved for women. Notwithstanding these gains, the group received reports that some political parties did not meet a requirement of having at least 5% women candidates on their party list. note that more than 5,000 candidates stood for election to the National Assembly in the general election, of whom approximately only 6% were women. We note reports of some communities that sought to deter women from campaigning and voting. We also note that there remain some barriers to the full participation of minority communities in Pakistan. Noting that Pakistan currently has the highest proportion of young people in its history, we observe and commend the active participation by youth in these elections, especially in campaigns and social media and on social media. The campaigns. We know the importance of the legal and administrative environment which facilitates the right of citizens to run for office and to vote for their chosen candidates. The group received reports of incidents of intimidation and even violence against some candidates, members of the media, and other citizens. We also received reports of arrest and detention, especially of supporters and members of some main political parties. We note the impact of legal decisions on the ability of some candidates to run for office in the days leading up to the election day, including a decision which disallows the party symbol of a main political party. Stakeholders expressed concern about the impact of this decision insofar as it curtails the right of voters to exercise their franchise, particularly illiterate voters. They also conveyed concerns about members of the affected party. They also conveyed concerns that members of the affected party would not be eligible for reserved seats. We observed that candidates conducted traditional and social media campaigns. We received reports of some candidates' campaigns being disrupted, thus affecting their right of peaceful assembly and their right to participate in the electoral process. We note there were instances where the prohibition on campaigning during the 48-hour silence period was also violated. The media. We received reports that state media coverage was more favorable to some candidates and parties than others. We note with concern certain media laws and their applications, as well as of pressure faced by some members of the media in regards to their coverage of elections, including for self-censorship and in regards to their safety. We commend those members of the media who withstood such pressures. We welcome the various fact-checking efforts by traditional media platforms and fact-checking organizations to mitigate the high incidence of disinformation, fake news, and hate speech. We encourage such efforts to continue. We note with concern the restriction placed on internet access, and in particular, the shutdown of internet and mobile phone services on election day, which curtailed freedom of speech, ease of communication, as well as other political rights. Communication with electoral stakeholders. We were informed about the implementation of codes of conduct for political parties and the media in this election. We note calls for more stakeholders' engagement in the development of these codes. We will reflect further on this in our final report and recommendations that can enhance engagement and transparency in this regard. Election management systems. We are encouraged by the efforts of the Electoral Commission of Pakistan in seeking to improve election management processes through the introduction of an election management system. We note, however, that the election management system could not operate effectively as intended on election day. I will comment on this shortly in our election day observation. Our election day observation, the eve of polling. During our deployment, the group observed preparation by local election officials, including the distribution of sensitive materials and setting up of polling stations. We observed that they were generally well prepared, and we wish to commend the ACP, their staff, and temporary workers, the ad hoc staff of over 1 million personnel. The polling environment. On 8 February, our observers visited polling stations to observe the opening, voting, counting, and collation of results, following which they returned to Islamabad for debriefing and preparation of this, our preliminary report. As chairperson on election day, I also had the opportunity to visit the Election Monitoring Control Center at the ECP and the Election Security Control Center under the Ministry of the Interior. One we received reports of some incidents on the election day, which we will consider further in our final report. Voting took place in a largely peaceful environment. Pre-poll procedures and opening of polls. We observed that pre-polling procedures were largely followed and that polling stations opened on time. Some stations experienced minor delays in opening. For the most part, they were equipped with requisite polling staff and material. Voter turnout. The group observed that the rate of voter turnout increased significantly as the day progressed. The group will comment further on this issue in our final report. Role of polling staff and polling procedures. Polling staff were, for the most part, professional and diligent in carrying out their duties. We observed, however, that in some instances, procedures were not adhered to. The processing of voters was slow in some instances. Participation and inclusion. We observed the significant presence of youth, including young women, as ECP officials and polling agents. We commend the presence of dedicated polling stations for women to facilitate the participation of female voters. We observed that there were many female polling staff and polling agents, and that women police officers were also present among the security at some polling stations. We observed many persons with disabilities, PWDs, voting on election day. We commend all polling staff and security personnel for being proactive in assisting and granting priority to PWDs, the elderly, pregnant, and nursing mothers, although we noted that such assistance was not uniform across the country. We observed some polling stations with concrete ramps for PWDs, but also noted the absence of ramps and other means of access at many polling stations. We also noted a number of polling stations that were located above the ground floor. We encourage the ECP to continue their important work towards fostering the inclusion of PWDs in the electoral process, including through increased voters' education on postal ballots. Role of party agents. While party or candidates agents were present in most polling stations observed, there were isolated cases of agents not being accommodated in some polling stations during the voting process, and in addition, they could not properly observe the count. Security. Security was highly visible at all polling locations that the group visited. Security officials were observed were professional and carried out their duties diligently. Secrecy of the ballot. The layout of polling stations generally ensured that the secrecy of the ballot for the voters was assured, although the group observed that the location of CCTV cameras in some polling stations could have compromised the secrecy. Close and count. Polling stations generally close on time, and those who were within the premises at a stipulated closing time of 17:00 hours were accorded the right to cast their ballot. The count at polling stations we observed was generally managed efficiently by polling staff. Results management. As during previous general elections, we noted the continued effort at promoting transparency with the display of the signed Form 45 outside each polling station after counting concluded. We note that these forms were due to be sent via a mobile phone application, but the shutdown of internet and mobile coverage compelled presiding officers to rely mainly on manual transmission of the forms. We received reports that this adversely impacted the processing of results. We will reflect on this further in our final report. Conclusion. We congratulate the people of Pakistan for their patience and determination throughout the electoral process. Notwithstanding the challenges noted, citizens turned out to exercise their right to vote on election day. We also commend all polling staff, political parties, candidates and their agents, and the security agencies for their respective roles during the electoral process. While the results process is being finalized, I call on all citizens to continue to exercise patience and restraint. It is our hope that the process will be concluded effectively and that it will reflect the will of the people. I speak from experience in calling for candidates to be magnanimous in victory and also gracious in defeat. We call on all those with grievances to address disputes through the prescribed election dispute resolution mechanism approved by the laws of Pakistan. Elections are defining moments in every democracy, and this election offers an opportunity to take forward the positive gains made in the previous cycle. We once again commend the efforts made to build on the improved legal framework from previous elections. We encourage these efforts to continue and reaffirm the Commonwealth's continuing commitment to being part of Pakistan's post-election journey. I thank you. Thank you. Let us take 2 others so I can respond to the trade. Who next?
Next.
First, in fact, I was expecting the first question about my comments on the internet. Basically, of course, you know that the issue of shutting down mobile phone was the subject of litigation in Pakistan before. And the court made a pronouncement that should not be done. That was there. But on that day, we noticed that the system was internet and mobile phone shut down. But already we have started elections. And we appreciate the concern of everybody. Even for us who are observers, it affected us. Because the observers in the internet are supposed to give on the spot reporting with their notepads. And when they shut down internet, they cannot do that. So even before we collect our own preliminary report, they all have to return to the number. So everybody knows that it affects. And technology must be used. That's the essence of technology. And that is why the electoral processes continue to improve. So nobody will say that technology is not relevant. And I did not say it was not relevant. But I said, yes, if the system shut down the internet and mobile phone, either for security reasons or for some reasons we are not privileged to know, we can still go on with the election. And I believe the election went well to a reasonable extent. I did not say that that is a commendable thing that we will recommend for government to continue to do. No. It affects everybody, including the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, in terms of collating and processing their results. So we didn't say so. And if you listen to our report, we try to also explain. And we believe that subsequent elections, the country will go back that level of shutting down the internet system. This affects a number of countries through similar things in some elections, but after some time, they allow the system to remain. They will now know that it does not, there will be no adverse effect on the electoral process. But Pakistan is a country, just like most other countries these days, that are suffering from terrorism and so on. So there are a number of things the security people do that if you don't understand details, you may look at it differently. But we encourage people, and that is the statement I made, that whether internet was shut down or not, let the elections go on. We should not stop the elections because of that. That was the encouragement. So just encouraging statement that we made. We did not say, oh, shutting down of internet or shutting down of mobile system is commendable. No, we cannot say so. Then the second question talks about invitation to international observers and international journalists. Yes, the essence is for election to be transparent. And that is what the Commonwealth believes in. Commonwealth will not go to a country where the laws and regulations will make elections not transparent. So for the country, and especially the Electoral Commission of Pakistan, to invite international journalists and national observers like the Commonwealth, that shows that they are willing to expose the electoral process to the views of the international community to ensure transparency, credibility, and so on and so forth. So I agree with you. The third question about Form 47 and Form 45. What you're saying is that some of the figures of Form 45 and 47 are different. Well, if they are, that means that something is not right. Because you collate at the Form 45 at the polling unit. At the polling unit, then at the district level, so at that level, Form 47, so the issue is supposed to be this. But we plead that if it is not error, if it is deliberate, then people should follow the process according to the prescribed laws of in terms of the election dispute resolution and mechanism available. I have not seen, and we did not really observe it, but the number of stations were observed are few compared to the total number of voting units across the country. Yes. Of the process, which is one thing that always confronts international election observers almost in fact in most countries. You may observe the elections that are reasonably free and fair in detail, but the process of collating the results from the units along the line, especially for countries that run the presidential system, for the presidential election. This is even okay, but they are only parliamentary elections. But countries that run the presidential system, that we have different levels of coalition, there's always allegation of figures being changed. In some cases, as the observer group, you have to be mindful about reports in the papers. So we're not saying that those who report in the papers are reporting what you know. But especially in the social media, where we know issues of fake reports, and of course you all know, because we are mainly journalists. So we have to be very, very circumspect in making pronouncements. But we have received such complaints, and we are looking into it. And we will finally, in our final report, because this is preliminary or interim report, in our final report, when we will go into details and investigate. Our reports will be very, very fair on some of these infractions. And if there are infractions as you have alleged, definitely those who are affected will follow the process. Comparing 2018 and 2024, yes, there's some improvement. We cannot say there was no improvement at all between 2018 and 2024. There are improvements. But there may be areas where the improvements are not very significant from the observation. But these are things that we will look into the report of our pre-election technical assessments, because people from Commonwealth were here before the election. I think they left in December. And we came for the election proper. And we look at everything and come up with the final report. And we'll be able to address most of these issues that you have raised. Yes, let the technical person ask.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I'm Chief Dr Jonathan Goodluck, working with the Neo Television. My question relates to the atmosphere and the sequence of events prior to elections, during which time large number of political activists were arrested, detained, and they were tried, including some political leaders convicted and sentenced to jail, including PDI leader Imran Khan. And then huge pressures on media, particularly journalists also, where we saw a large number of notices served on journalists just prior to polling day from the investigation authorities. About 30 journalists were served with notices by the FIA. And at the same time, we saw some decisions coming from judiciary, including the one that deprived PTI of its election symbol. So how do you see the state of independence of judiciary, independence of media, and due process of law, and particularly the prosecution of some of the political workers and leaders, and were the trials fair prior to election, and do you think all these related to the elections?
Thank you so much. If you're happy, because they said they won elections. So what there were issues, that those issues that they did, they could still go on with the election. But anything that the Supreme Court of the nation makes a pronouncement, you must be mindful about. Because except go through the legal processes. But we all agree that those issues, that's why we raise in our report. And in our final report, we go into a little more deep into it. There's the need for those areas to be looked into by the government. So I totally agree with you. If judgments are given that will affect particular parties or candidates, or like the issue of pressure on journalists who made comments and commended the journalists that in spite of pressure, they kept to their commitment to society. So we make reference. So if you go and read the report, we cover all those ones that they are concerns to all of us. But in terms of details, we use that one to really condemn, because what that process that took place before the election, that's the pre-election environment which we commented on. But the election day proper, we felt that things were reasonably done. The issue of managing the results from polling units to where results are now are the things that we will also look into it again. Thank you. People who have their opinion. We send people across the country. So our report is based on our observation. On election day, it's based on our observation. The pre-election assessment is different and general issues of concern to society. But on that election day, we send people across, and our report is based on what we observed, and we are not dissuaded by what a newspaper, whether in the US or UK, or Germany, or France, or China report, or even in Pakistan. But what we observe, but we make reference to those issues. If you listen to, we make reference to, if any issue that is raised, we make reference to. But we rely more on what we observe on the ground. It's unfortunate that this particular Pakistan 2024 election, Commonwealth appears to be the only international observer that sent observers across the country. In some countries, have up to 4 or more international observers that sent the vote across. So at the end of the day, you can compare what one group say and what the other group did not say. But this one appears to be the only group. Well, the citizen observers, that is the indigenous observers, they had more observers. They had about 6,000 observers from what they told us. They have also given their reports this morning, also at 10 a.m. So I have no idea about what they said, but you can also listen to them because they are citizen observers. But we report based on what observed. We are not disagreeing. They must have a reason to make those statements. But we keep to what we observe on the ground. Thank you.